Welcome to this video presentation by the postgraduate student whose poster it represents. We will miss the bustling crowds around the posters at the All Energy Conference this year, but we hope you enjoyed this online version that we have created. Before the presentation starts, I would like to acknowledge the support of our generous sponsors. Without this support, the competition could not proceed and the winning entrants would not receive a financial award. Our platinum sponsor is the Victorian Government through the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning. Its brands include Victorian Energy Compare, Victorian Energy Saver, Victorian Energy Upgrade Program, Energy Scorecard and Energy for Business. Their contact details are on the slide. Monash University's Monash Energy Institute is one of our silver sponsors. With over 170 staff involved, the Institute has a vision to bring people together to solve global energy problems. The Monash student posters in this competition represent some of that work. Baywa Renewable Energy is another silver sponsor. Baywa develops both wind and solar projects in Australia as part of a global energy portfolio. Baywa staff have also supported our AIE events in the past, including our Young Energy Professionals Speed Networking events. Our final silver sponsor is the University of Melbourne's Melbourne Energy Institute. Many of you will have attended their regular forums that keep the energy community and public up to date on technical and policy energy matters, and the University of Melbourne posters in this competition reflect some of that work. Seed Advisory is our bronze sponsor, and this small but well-recognised energy consultancy covers both the technical and regulatory fields. Seed Advisory has been a regular supporter of the AIE and a presenter at our events. Lastly, we thank All Energy for hosting our live poster events over the last decade, and we look forward to doing this again post-COVID. These last slides show you our poster winners in the last competition. And I now hand you over to the poster presentation. Thank you.
Hello and welcome, my name is William. I'm from the University of Melbourne. This is my video for the Australian Institute of Energy's poster competition. And today I'm going to be talking about my topic on the role of pre-curtailed residential PV for primary frequency response. So in recent years, following a reduction in cost of the production of rooftop solar PV panels, we're seeing a continual growth in the installation of rooftop PV panels on residential customers. And for example, in Australia, they lead the world in this regard with the highest percentage of houses with an installation. Now, of course, there's a fixed amount of demand that generation must meet. So the more we increase non-synchronous generation, such as residential PV panels, we're going to see a reduction in energy provided by synchronous generation, coal, gas, that kind of thing. Now, these synchronous generators not only provide inertia through the mass of the spinning rotor, but they also provide ancillary services that are very important for the function of a power system. Now, today I'm going to be focusing on the ancillary service primary frequency response. Now, primary frequency response is there to arrest the fall of frequency. So if we have a contingency, we lose our largest generator, we then will have demand exceeding generation, frequency is going to drop. It's the role of primary frequency response to inject power following a detection of that drop in frequency, restore the balance of supply and demand, and arrest the fall in frequency before it gets too low, before other emergency control actions such as under frequency load shedding occur. Now, if we're seeing big generators being increasingly asked to provide PFR, then it makes sense that smaller generators such as residential PV, if one day they're going to form even larger portions of the energy mix, be also asked to perhaps help provide ancillary services through primary frequency response. Now, of course, they can provide primary frequency response today just by curtailing their output for an over frequency event, but for a loss of a generator, At the moment, they're no help. So for residential PVs to help, they need to supply power following a drop in frequency. And to do this, we need to create a reserve of power from residential PV systems. So residential PVs, in theory, could help provide PFR and aid system operation through pre-curtailing their power output, creating a reserve of power, and then injecting that reserve of power when the frequency drops. Now, of course, residential PV systems are located within distribution networks, so there's always going to be a limit on how much power could be injected based on the voltage and current limits within those distribution networks. So any level of PFR that we want to extract from residential PV systems are going to need to consider these networks. So as a starting point, to ensure the integrity of our distribution network, there's an iterative process where we reduce the export limits for each household with a residential PV system until there's no longer any current or thermal or voltage issues within the distribution networks for the time period of assessment. From here, we now have a level of PV availability, if you like, the amount that can be injected from distribution networks that won't cause issues, and then we use this for our system level simulations. So our system level simulations is a unit commitment. Now the unit commitment is modified so it can make a decision to curtail some residential PV output, but of course in doing so it's curtailing what is essentially free generation. So now we move on to the case study. So we have it split into two sections, the distribution level and the system level. At the distribution level, we're determining our PV export limit, as I previously mentioned, and as we can see in the system level, up to a certain PV penetration, we're now constrained by the distribution networks at how much PV we can actually inject to the system level. So here we can see an example penetration 70% PV. On the left we have no PFR from PV, the power and PFR dispatch, and on the right we have, when we do have PFR from residential PV, again the power and PFR dispatch. Now the important thing to note here is, firstly, of course, you can see the slight increased power supplied by the synchronous generators when we have PFR from PV, and if we look on the two graphs below, we can see why in the PFR dispatch. So on the right there we can see there's a significant amount of power being supplied by the residential PV systems that are pre-curtailed, and they're providing a significant portion of the PFR. What does that mean? Well, we now no longer are constrained from the synchronous generator perspective in providing that PFR. So that means we no longer have to operate as many synchronous generators at low power outputs, just there to provide that PFR reserve, which is, of course is inefficient. So despite the cost of curtailing what is essentially free energy, it's still worth it because we're no longer operating these synchronous generators so inefficiently, just there to provide that reserve. So in conclusion, this work has really demonstrated that yes, residential PV systems are displacing synchronous generators and they're displacing the ancillary services such as PFR that they provide. But if we can come up with some updated standards, residential PV systems can play an important role at the system level by providing PFR, and we're seeing an increased prioritization of PFR over energy. So it really is massive if residential PV systems can provide this PFR, particularly when we consider the very high penetrations we expect into the future. Thank you for listening.